to make the boat look really nice for the Rendezvous 2008 in Maple Bay, so we decided to revarnish our handrails inside and out. Unfortunately, while I was taking them off, I managed to break one of them in 3 pieces. So this necessitates us making new ones for the outside. Now, the old ones are 35 years old. They've been sanded and refinished several times, so they're getting a little thin. So this is probably a good idea anyway. Raw materials required. The exterior grab rails are made of teak. They can be made out of any hardwood, oak, mahogany, whatever, but teak is probably your best bet. So the first step is measure to determine what size lumber you need. You'll need a 5/4 inch rough by 6 inch wide by 8 foot long plank to do the outside rails. And this is a nice piece of solid teak from Eden Saw Woods in Port Townsend, Washington. And I've marked out the pattern here. Then we're going to cut. The technique we're going to use is to use a drill bit to drill through the center line. We've got the 2 handrails facing each other, so that what we're going to do is cut them out and then rip them in half and have 2 rails. So first step is to drill, and then we will rip and then cut out the rest of it with a bandsaw. Then after that, we'll use a router to round off the handrails, and a planer to get a nice smooth finish on the flat surfaces. And then we'll be ready to sand a little bit and put some varnish on. And then we'll take them back to the boat and install them. Safe shop practices. We have the board supported and clamped in place before we start drilling, just to help us get a more precise hole, and just like as I said, to use sound, safe shop practices. Want to be as accurate as we possibly can, although we are working in wood, so you know, a pencil line's difference one way or the other won't be critical. The more accurate we are, the better it'll turn out. So we're going to be really careful with this. Measure twice, cut once, and always double check to make sure that you're lined up. After you clamp the work in place, it looks pretty good. I love this drill bit, by the way. You can see through it to see that the pilot is hitting right on the line, right where we want it to. It's really a pleasure to work in a well-equipped workshop. I can tell you right now that I'm really enjoying working here using all these great tools. And we're going to make a little noise because we have to turn on the vacuum cleaner here using this little device here, which Oh no! I
Man,
just
you did
cut-
that made my heart skip.
Okay, there's one. And here's the other, and now we just do the second one the same way. All right, the next operation is to cut the inner and outer curvature on the rails using a bandsaw. Next step is to run these things through the planer so we don't have to do too much sanding. Well, we're resisting the temptation to use a belt sander on this to clean up these inside radiuses on these rails here. So we're using a wood rasp. Always use a handle on your rasp. I couldn't resist, some of the best equipped shops I've ever had the privilege of working in, but no handle for the rasp. I know what I'm getting Dave for Christmas. So here we are. We've cut them out, planed them, dressed them with a rasp, and now we're going to run through the router to round off the edges.
I'm going to push through this way, cutting it. If you come back,
Right.
it'll
chatter.
Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
leave that. And it's nice if you can keep it
Steady.
Yeah, okay, great. We got all that. Okay, well, fantastic. And
Which side is the cutting side? Is it this side?
yeah, you can keep it on there so you can use that. And it's got
The
the
roller.
bearing, so you can just
Against
come,
the roller,
come right
and-
into the roller. Yeah.
Come right into the roller.
And then when you're coming in on a piece like this, what I do is I think about the perpendicular line of the roller, and then bring it in and touch it right on that outside and get started, so it's not moving too much, so you don't come around or so,
Oh, you mean start it like this?
And bring it into wherever you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's see, where's our on stitch? It's good thing you're here, I don't think I could get that.
Yeah.
Stitches.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, ready?
Ready? All right, well, now we've got them all shaped. They're all nice and round. Nice and rounded, nice and cut out. We made this with 5/4 inch, or 1.25" rough teak, so that we would have plenty of meat. And they're a little bit more than 1 inch around now. We used a 1/2 inch radius router bit around the edges. And after dressing them up with a file or a rasp, they turned out quite nice. All we need to do now, sand them down and give them a coat of varnish, or what I'm going to use is Sikkens Cetol Marine for these. These are all going on the outside. We're going to reuse the original ones on the inside. Well, just for comparison, I've laid out the original handrails with the new ones that we just made. You can see the difference between these. These were on the outside of the boat. This is what they look like. This is the reason we took them off. And this one was on the outside of the boat. The finish doesn't look that bad, but you can see after 35 years of being sanded and refinished, they started out 1 inch. And now they're, I don't know what they are, but they're not 1 inch anymore. These I purposely made a little bit more. They're a little bit more than 1 inch, but not a whole lot. So these will be much stronger, and they'll be good for another 30 years, I expect. A nice piece of teak, and a good afternoon's project. Now the only thing that remains is for us to sand them down and get some a nice finish on them. After the pieces are cut to shape on the router, after the bandsaw and the router, and we've got everything all shaped, the next step is to smooth them down using 100 grit sandpaper by hand. Don't use a power sander on these at this stage of the game. It'll only take a few minutes to get all the little tool marks sanded off using 100 grit sandpaper. Won't take long at all.